a new way of manhood, a new way of showing up that is very important, because what happens is that men, from my observation, can become abusive if they're trying to hold their yin in. So in other words, how can I have a great relationship with the divine feminine, the divine yin, if I'm not even in tune with my yin within? You see, if I'm abusing my own yin, I can't cry under any circumstances. It ain't happening. You know what I mean? I can't, be among men and women and really tell them what's going on. I can't do any of that. You see what I'm saying? So now a woman shows up and he extends that same lack of empathy for the yin, for the feminine, or for that nurturing side. He extends that out with how he relates to the women. So that's how you can have men who become abusive. Because first and foremost, they're abusive too. They're not able to sit and be quiet. They're not able to listen. They're not able to ask the questions and ask for that divine insight and really nurture themselves.
Right. So how did you get to this? You said that your mom, you had some insecurities, and so then you kind of like took a deeper dive into it to start to heal yourself. But what about the regular old brother who has never heard of this before? What are like the top 3 things he can do today after hearing this or watching this Facebook Live to start to become more in tune with, this, what we're talking about? Because I feel like, sometimes we might be talking airy and they don't even know. You said Tantra, you said Qigong, you said a whole bunch of things that I know that most people that I know have no clue about. So what are some practical, I like to say that I'm real woo, realistic and woo-woo, real woo-woo. So let's talk about some realistic things that the brothers, because I know the women are running to healing. Many of them, the ones that I know, they are running. They want to do every single thing, try every pill, try every wrap, try every womb sauna, try every mastermind to get it done. But the brothers are not necessarily there yet. And let's ask why. Let's ask 1, why do you think they aren't there yet? And then 2, the practical tips.
The reason they're not there yet in mass is that there's shifts that take place on the planet, the pole shift, where the humanity can become a bit more patriarchal or matriarchal over time period.
Okay.
And so for a long time, we were in more of I would say a patriarchal or a masculine, I wouldn't necessarily call it a divine masculine paradigm, but a masculine paradigm that was exploitative, that was at times abusive to the yin, the feminine. And that showed up with how men treated women around the world, second-class citizens at times, how we were abusive and always looking to war amongst ourselves, and how we even abused and manipulated and exploited the planet. So in order for the planet and humanity to not only survive but continue to thrive, that shift from a planetary standpoint and a galactic standpoint had to take place more to the feminine. Okay. So with that, you have women who are coming more into their divine feminine because that's the planetary shift. Okay. And so naturally, you all is like, hey, I'm coming into myself. I'm, this emerging energy that's not just a woman on an individual standpoint, but from a collective standpoint. So it's incumbent on women to really step up to bring that nurturing that was absent on the planet for so long. That nurturing for humanity, for the planet, for saving the resources and actually using the planetary resources in a way that benefit all. That's, how can I say it is a bit more of a divine feminine, how can I say it, energetic. Okay. So naturally, you all are being who you all are called to be right now. Okay. So men, it's very important that we become more balanced. That we see, okay, I'm not this one-dimensional, two-dimensional, three-dimensional man where I'm simply showing up as the warrior. I'm just a tough guy. Or I'm just showing up as the provider, paying the bills, so forth and so on. I mean, those are very important. Mm-hmm. But you have a variety of archetypes that represent divine masculine energy. The healer, the visionary. So you have a number of different aspects that most men have not tapped into and aligned with.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Can you give examples? Like, what would that look like? What does a warrior look like? I mean, I'm thinking the, like Mel Gibson when he was, in some of those roles, or like, who are the people who are showing up in the way that you're saying these 7 archetypes that we could identify with to give us a frame of reference?
Well, great. Some of them are been amongst us over the past several decades. When you look at Malcolm X,
okay,
you're talking about a man who had a serious evolutionary curve. He came into existence from a very proud, culturally, politically, spiritually astute family, mother and father, Garveyites. They were very much into empowerment for Black people, people of color. And then he went obviously into the streets and had a number of different experiences that were, how can I say it, a part of his learning curve. And then he healed himself. Obviously, he had assistance from certain people like Elijah Muhammad and others. So he was able to heal himself from a lot of the traumas that he went through. Okay. As a boy coming up, so forth and so on in his early adulthood years. And then obviously you're talking about a man with a vision, with a vision, first and foremost for Black folks, and then that expanded out to humanity as he continued to grow. You're talking about someone who was willing to put it all on the line, and not just for himself or his family and his community, but humanity. Right. And so the warrior has the ability to transcend his fears. Not live in his fears, but transcend his fears and continue moving forward. You're talking about a pillar, someone who actually is a leader, not just within their family, but their community. Obviously, that was Malcolm X. He obviously had a very spiritual side. He went to Mecca and he joined a very spiritual movement. So you're talking about someone who was aligned with all of those divine masculine archetypes. Same thing with Martin Luther King. We also have leaders today. I would say anyone who comes forward and acknowledges their pain and traumas and things of that nature and really steps up to be the best version of themselves as men or women is representative of the warrior. And so we need more examples. I would say men who are coming forward and acknowledging that they were sexually abused. And you have more men coming forward today. That's an example of the divine masculine, that warrior, you know what I mean? Because I want to say naturally, but there's a tendency like, man, I'm not sharing that. Right. I'm just going to continue to self-medicate. Right. You know what I'm saying? Abuse myself, take it out on other folks. So to actually come forward and say, this didn't define me. You know what I mean? This was something I went through at 3, 4, 5, 10 or whatever, but this is not my life path. And so I'm going to liberate myself from this. That's a warrior. So we have to redefine what that is. Not somebody like, I ain't going to tell this under any circumstance. I'm just going to take this to the grave, continue to be an alcoholic, and hurt people. Right. That's not the warrior. Okay. So let's go back to the tips, unless you have something to add there.
I was going to say, when I'm asked that question, I say manifest her off. Because you are a living demonstration of all of these archetypes. I just want to honor you and tell the people this is why I really love the work you're doing with Sage Men. You are pioneering what this looks like in our day and age. And so kudos to you for being that warrior for us, people like Wendy and myself, to look to. And when people are looking for it, I say manifest. Well, I just gave somebody your number yesterday. I said, call him. He is living it. You are the first man I met that I said, wow, he's really balanced in his masculine and feminine. It was beautiful to see. It is beautiful to see. So I just wanted to acknowledge you.
Thank you so much, Thema. I appreciate that. And I would even encourage, whenever y'all see men stepping up and being the best version of themselves, always acknowledge it. Because there is, as I said, that planetary shift where it's more natural for you all to step up and embrace these expansive archetypes for what the divine feminine is. Men, oftentimes, we need some encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I organize some of the retreats and men's workshops, and in many cases, the men are showing up, but women told the men they want to be like, we go around the circle like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna put my hand up too. She told me I need to be there.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm thinking I'm here because if I don't go, she might meet a brother who was there. You know what I mean? So you don't. In many cases, you don't have brothers. You don't have men showing up by their own accord, and so by you giving them that nudge, like, listen, brother, you know, I see great things in you. First of all, I want to acknowledge you as being a king, God, warrior, so forth and so on. But I also want to encourage you. There's a workshop, there's a retreat coming up, and we need a stronger version of who you are. You know what I'm saying? So it's lifting them up and encouraging. I think that's very important. This day and time when men are like, man, what, you know, you mean to tell me I just can't be two-dimensional? I thought I was paying the bills, or I thought I was the warrior. No, we need to push men. We need to nudge men. We need to help them understand that they're great, you know, by the way in which that's their birthright, but that needs to fully come through. And the more you all can hold men up, and even in you know, when you're amongst their presence, you might not even need to say it verbally. Just say a little prayer with them. You know, send brothers some good. I think energy is transferable, so everything is energy. So the more you all energetically send that good energy, those prayers and that support, it becomes a unifying force with divine masculine at times when you don't even have to say anything.
Right.
Which means it's giving birth to something greater.
So I became aware of you through Thema. Now Thema had a retreat, and it was, tell us about your retreat. And then tell us about the video, because the video
took off,
was crazy. And that's how I became aware. So I want to hear about that. Then I want to hear what the Sage Men is. And then I want to hear, how did you get to there? So she gave you a lot of kudos, and I agree. But who held you up? Who gave you the encouragement to get to that point? So Elevation Weekend.
So Elevation Weekend is a 4-day healing experience where people, and it was designed for women, come from all over the world to Maryland. This beautiful retreat center has over 300 acres of sacred land. Gorgeous. So we're putting this together. We had took a break for a year and brought it back last year. And I remember in looking at what I felt like was the pulse of the people, what was missing was women's ability to receive the divine masculine energy. And I do think that there is an illusion that there are not enough men coming into this awakening. But in the work that I do, I'm actually seeing a lot of men wake up and walk in their power. And so I wanted the women attending to see them interact and receive that healing energy. And this started with Manifest Not years ago. You know, we collaborated on something, and I remember I brought some sisters and he had the brothers there, and we talked about, you know, this was the defining moment for me when the brothers stood in front of us and they were like, whatever man was here before that wounded you, I'm bringing my energy to assist in correcting that wound. That was life changing for me.
It's mind blowing to even hear that.
Yes, because as a Black woman in America, we don't get that kind of energy often, but it's happening more and more. And so I used Elevation Weekend as a house for that. And I asked Manifest to bring the Sage Men and to hold space for the women. And it was amazing. So, I mean, I didn't even know them. So I said, I'm going to have ushers next time because the women was dropping. I said, we're going to need some white cloths or something. It was so powerful. They are still talking about it. We are recruiting for Elevation Weekend now for the next one. And I said, there's no way I can turn back. I got to, continue to hold that space for that. Some of the testimonies that came were women literally for the first time felt like they were receiving genuine, like agape love from a man.
Right.
These are women, some of them grew up in homes with their daddies. Some of them have been married before. But the first time they felt that kind of love from a man was at Elevation Weekend. Amazing. Amazing. And so that's how that came about. And we're going to do greater. Greater is coming.
So in the show notes, when we finish this, I'm going to put the video there.
Okay.
So people can watch
so
it.
They can see it.
So you invited the Sage Men. Manifest. Who are the Sage Men?
Yes.
Wow, great question. I remember back in 2013, through my nonprofit Heal Humanity, we had a monthly event series, and oftentimes I will go into my meditative silence to get divine insight. What that monthly theme is, guided by my ancestors and Creator. And so what came through me, it was nearing the summer solstice. And so the summer solstice is the most masculine time in that hemisphere. So we out doing things, as much, the most daylight in that hemisphere. And people out drumming, surfing, all those kinds of things. Obviously during the winter solstice, it's the more divine feminine from the regard that, people are introspective, meditative, just in the self-nurturing, all those kinds of things to get that divine insight, more stillness. So what came through me was that oftentimes men have used this masculine energy in abusive ways to the planet, to women, to the divine feminine. And I said, okay, let's use this powerful masculine energy in a way that honors, protects, and heals women. Right. And that was basically not just revolution, but evolutionary. Thinking like, wow, okay, we can take this masculine energy, this powerful masculine energy during this heightened time of the year, and actually channel it to be that warrior, to be that healer for all things feminine. And so I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was like, hey, thank you, Creator. Sounds great. Right. So, Thema brought the women, and obviously the men were there. And she had the how can I say it, intuition to know that, okay, hey, let me take the women over in the corner somewhere, because they're probably not going to be initially receptive to this masculine energy. Right. I didn't pick that up. You know what I'm saying? So that just goes to show you how you need both the divine feminine and divine masculine. I mean, with me, we probably would have just been like,
he's like, we know how to give. I'm like, well, we know how to receive. Let me go handle these girls over here for a second.
Could you imagine, that charge energy from the brothers and the sisters not be quite ready and open? Exactly. It perhaps could have been worse than what,
traumatization.
Exactly. Wow. So I give thanks because Thema was able to take the sisters, women, and they did some womb work, some meditation, some affirmation, prayer, and all of that, and got themselves ready. And I was over there helping the brothers get rooted, get into our masculine energy, our grounding energy, and be aligned and open up our hearts. So after about 30 minutes, we came back and it was magic. Yeah. It was bringing the divine feminine and the divine masculine together. And men, we said a number of things. We did affirmations. We did energy work with the sisters. We gave y'all roses and carnations and fresh coconut water that was just made like a couple hours before. And the woman was like, you can't be serious. Yeah. Where's this been? This can't be a one-night stand, brother. We need more of this. I mean, you have women weeping, opening up, saying like, hey, this is the first time they have been among men, black men in particular, where it was about healing. It was about that agape. It was about that upliftment. And can you imagine a woman 35, 40, 45 saying she never experienced anything like this? Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about my own experience. I haven't really necessarily been, and my grandparents and my elders, they were very kind to me, very loving, whatever. But amongst my peers, I had never been really, honestly, even in relationships where I felt 100% safe. I felt like from a male perspective, if I had a boyfriend, I always felt like maybe 80% of me might have felt okay, but there was always a little nagging 20% that'd be like, I have to do extra this, I have to be this, I have to do this, I have to, and I'm not safe, so I always gotta keep my third eye on that fool. And so also just in any old situation, walking down the street, walking down the street, you could potentially get, or I have gotten feedback from males. They'll say, oh, you this, or you look that, or whatever. But I always didn't necessarily feel it was a safe place, even just to say thank you. I'll always try to say thank you, but then I'm always worried about what's next.
Like, I don't want anything.
The feeling has always been what's required of me.
What is required for me to accept your, hey girl, you look pretty today, or even get the drink at the club. Now you got to follow me around the whole night because you just bought me a drink. Like, I don't feel like all that sometimes. So that's a great thing that you were able to give them energy so that they felt safe. Because I saw this one lady, she fell on the ground on your video, and I was like, yo.
It was dropping.
Yeah.
And even at Elevation Weekend, before we started the ceremony, there were a few women that came to me like trembling. Like, am I going to be okay? Oh. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And I think what this activates for women is the awareness of how exhausted we are. When the divine masculine healing, masculine energy comes in, it helps us recognize I'm really tired of this imbalance and not feeling safe, and it gives us a place to rest. And so I think that's amazing.
So Manifest, in your evolution, how did you get to the place where you are now? How did you get there? Who held space for you to be able to do this?
Well, briefly, I'd like to go back and continue to talk about the Sage. So the Sage men were born out of that divine masculine and feminine coming together during the most masculine time in that hemisphere. So we're not just a group where, hey, men just came together and said let's come together as men. It was born out of
Manifest. That's our baby.
Exactly.
Sage men was created as that's amazing. I mean, we talk about this all the time, and it just came to me. Like, that's so amazing.
Yeah.
Sage men. You never know what I'm gonna say. You give me a mic.
So I kind of lost my track of place.
No, I know cracking
babies
jokes. No.
And whatever.
He's talking about Sage men and tell them more.
Right, exactly. So with that, we started having meetings on where we're going with this, and we've had stops and starts and things of that nature. Where we've had month programs, and where we are now, it was divine order and intervention that Thema was moved to reach out to me year before last, as we came up on Elevation Weekend, because it was a clear call for the updated Sage men to come forward in a more expansive way, where we will be a global force for men stepping into their divine power as the divine masculine. Stepping up, representing all these archetypes, not a one-dimensional or two-dimensional man, but a man who is embodying, exemplifying, living 7 archetypes of the divine masculine: the visionary, the warrior, the enterpriser, the healer, the tantric, the pillar, and the mystic. Can you imagine men showing up like that? That's men showing up as God on earth. Doing, y'all saying, we're the God.
They Sage men. That's what they are.
Yes. So that's what we're bringing forward. We have a rites of passage coming up in the next couple of months. So any men out there watching, reach out, and women who want men in their lives, their sons, their fathers, their husbands, give them that nudge. Yeah. Give them that push. And come on out. So I'm excited. And of course, we're looking to do great work from here on out with Thema and all that she's doing. So I'm excited about the next Elevation Weekend.
We support each other. Yeah.
So you wouldn't even believe that we only have like 8 minutes left in the whole thing. It just goes so fast. So I want to go back to something practical tips from each of you, maybe 2 from each of you, on how we can begin to be even aware that it's good to balance this energy. Let's start with you, Thema.
My practical tip would be expand your vision, because you can't receive what you don't have, what you can't see for yourself.
Okay.
So if you've had difficulty, whether you're a male or woman or female, with receiving from the other, start visualizing that that's not your story anymore. That's not your experience anymore. Be intentional about calling in a new experience, and you'll find yourself surrounded with that, and that energy will be drawn to you. That's my practical tip. I really just think you need to see it for yourself.
Right. Okay. Well, I have an example of that from Thema. So I was in the process of buying a house, right? And she was like, well, what do you want the house to look like? And I hadn't thought about it. I just said, I want a house. So she said, how many windows? Does the sun hit it a certain way? Blah, blah, blah. And as I started to really think about it, I really started to believe that that was something that I could get, or that it was something that I could co-create, because I hadn't thought of it before. So I started to write down things, and 2 years later, boom, I love waking up to the sun hitting my face. My house is beautiful. I call it the Zen Palace, but I hadn't even thought. I just said, I want a house. I hadn't even thought of the details. And when I was able to put the details out into the atmosphere, then I got them back. And even better than I thought that they would come. So just being able to envision it is really key. So thank you for that. And then for you, we got 5 minutes left. So talk about some practical tips. So I feel like the women, we always get them. What about 3 from you for the brothers to start today?
Well, a similar process. Some things are universal. Really take some time to say, okay, how do I want to show up at my highest possibilities on the planet as a man?
Right.
Transcending fears, limitations. What does that look like for me? From a place of my purpose, doing my purpose and living my purpose, being the best man in my relationship, from being maybe the best father, to being in optimal health across the board, and just taking the time to envision that from that highest possibilities. Hold that vision, make vision boards, whatever, so forth. Return to that daily, because as we know, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So if men are holding their highest possibilities as their primary frame of reference, then they'll attract experiences like connections with brothers like Manifest Rob, with connections with sisters like Thema and Wendy, that are encouraging men to be their very best. I would say number 2, also men